Someone help me find an advantage for Texas here. Because I keep looking. I keep trying to find one. I keep trying to, give Texas a little bit of the benefit of the doubt here. But in every game that Texas has played so far this season, I feel like I can say, okay, Texas's advantage is the defense. Because Texas's defense is one of the best defenses in the country. Even the 2 times that they played Georgia, I said, I still think Texas has the advantage defensively. Texas is only giving up 280 yards a game. And they're only giving up 14.5 points throughout the entirety of the season. Ohio State's defense is better. They're giving up fewer points a game. They're giving up fewer yards per game. And Ohio State's defense, has played better throughout the college football playoff. You can nitpick both of these quarterbacks, but overall, Quinn Ewers has not been incredibly impressive in the college football playoff. He's done some great things. Obviously the 4th and 13 against Arizona State, he stepped up in a big way, but Will Howard has been unstoppable in the playoffs. Fitz, the only advantage that I see here for Texas is that the game is being played in Texas. Am I wrong?
Which is a heck of an advantage. But no, you're right. Here's the funny thing about that Texas defense, because I feel like every week I come out and I'm like, oh, Texas defense. All right, 2 playoff games. I thought they gave up too many points to Clemson, and they let Arizona State back in the game. They got run on by Arizona State. And like as good as Cam has been and as good as that Arizona State, as well as they played throughout the course of that, let's not get it twisted. Ohio State's a much more formidable offense to be taken on, Adam. So, I mean, in my mind, even the Texas defense has not looked quite like we expect the Texas defense to look for their first 2 wins. I take nothing away from the fact that they are where they are, but man, in order to find a path to win here, I've got to give the benefit of the doubt to Texas that their defense is going to play lights out, that Quinn Ewers isn't going to throw the stupid pick per game that he seems to throw every single time, that Quinn Ewers is going to play absolutely clean. They're going to run the ball better than they have against quality opponents. And all at the same time, I'm going to have to take away any benefit of the doubt that Ohio State is actually who Ohio State has looked like for the last 2 games. I can't find a path. I cannot believe I'm saying this right now, but I can't find a path here where I feel comfortable picking a Texas win.
Yeah, I agree with you, Fitz. And I think that the biggest matchup in this game, or the biggest factor for Texas, is that Texas is going to have to do everything they possibly can to not allow Jeremiah Smith to march up and down the field on them and dominate as one of the best receivers in college football. I think Texas actually will have some success in slowing down Jeremiah Smith. Texas's secondary is elite. One of the highest graded in the country, according to some of the data services. They can hang around with Ohio State for sure. But the good news for Ohio State is that they have 2 other legitimate wide receivers to go up along with their generational wide receiver 1. I mean, you got Emeka Egbuka, you got Carnell Tate. Egbuka has quietly become one of the top receivers in Ohio State history. That's a long list of elite receivers that play for Ohio State. Egbuka has, 5-6 catches in each of the last 2 playoff games for Ohio State. The storyline all season has been Jeremiah Smith, and rightfully so, but it's time for Emeka Egbuka or Carnell Tate to remind the rest of the nation that they would be the best player on 90% of teams in America. And Carnell Tate has just a couple catches in each of those games, but those guys are good enough. And with Texas putting all that pressure to slow down Jeremiah Smith and not allowing him to beat them, I think that we're going to see Carnell Tate or Emeka Egbuka have a huge game and end up really being the deciding factor in what I think will be a pretty close game between Ohio State and Texas.
And the other path that I see for Texas is, let's not forget that Ohio State has had, 20-something different offensive line combinations, that they're without their starting left tackle, that they're without their starting center, Seth McLaughlin. That has not reared its ugly head so far in the college football playoff. In fact, I think Ohio State's offensive line has maybe even played better in the college football playoff, not at full strength, and they were at full strength in the regular season. And that's going up against Tennessee's defense that I think is the deepest defensive line in all of college football. That was going up against Oregon's defensive front that has NFL players scattered all around it. So it's not like this is an offensive line that hasn't been tested. I guess the only thing is, does something have to give for Ohio State's offensive line? Does something have to give for Will Howard, who has been playing absolutely lights out best football of the season in these last 2 college football playoff games? I've seen nothing over these last two games against two of the best teams in the country that would lead me to believe that that would be the case. That would lead me to believe that Ohio State's offensive line and Will Howard as a whole, will take a step back. But that's really the only path that I kind of see here for Texas. And it's obviously Texas forcing turnovers, running the ball effectively. That's an incredibly important key component in Texas winning football games. Maybe unexpected playmakers stepping up for Texas. And Matthew Golden has gotten a majority of the targets in the playoffs. Maybe it's Silas Bolden or Ryan Wingo, the true freshman, that step up in this game. But those are all what ifs. Those are all maybe this might happen. The proven commodity here is Ohio State.
Yeah, and I think that even the bigger offensive line story here is Texas's offensive line. They looked banged up against Arizona State, and this could be a nightmare for Texas. I mean, I'm worried that Quinn Ewers is going to be fighting for his life back there, and it's one of those games where you look up at the end and Ohio State had 7 or 8 sacks. I'm expecting a first quarter sky cam shot that has Quinn Ewers adjusting his face mask because JTT or Cody Simon just came in unblocked after Texas was sliding their protection to block Jack Sawyer. I mean, I kind of get you're gonna see that in the game in the first quarter and be like, that was a sky cam shot we were talking about. I mean, this could be a nightmare for Texas's O-line against Ohio State's pass rush.
Well, and if we're being honest, I was surprised that Arch didn't get a look at some point in the Arizona State game just because Quinn was getting beat up so bad. I wondered, they're going to go to a more mobile quarterback just to help them find a way to extend some of these plays and drives in the second half. To your point, Adam, that feels like such a huge part of this game is that you're stuck. If you can't stop that defensive line from getting after Quinn, you're gonna force everything for him to speed up. And once everything for him speeds up, now all of the benefit of the doubt arguments of can they establish these other things are going to become more difficult, which is why, go back to insert here, Texas has got to run the football and be able to rely on play action. I don't know how they're going to run the football against this Ohio State defensive line. So the narrative on Ohio State, rightfully so, has changed so much from the Michigan game because they look like a different team. The play calling, the execution, all of it just looks like a different team. So it's you almost have to crumple up whatever we saw in the Michigan result and just throw that away and say, I don't really care about that. That's an outlier to what we've seen for 2 straight weeks. And I want to go back to that Caroline's point on that Tennessee defense. That Tennessee defensive line was supposed to be able to absolutely wreck Ohio State. They didn't get wrecked, right? And then that Tennessee offense was supposed to be able to run the football. They couldn't do a damn thing against that Ohio State defensive line. It's the front 7 on both sides that look reimagined in the playoffs. And that's, man, when you're that hot on those sides of the ball for that team, I don't know how you stop it. I don't know how you slow it down. This is the same problem we've said for the last couple of opponents. If you dig yourself into a big hole, how do you get out of it? If Texas digs themselves into a 21-0 hole, which is what we've seen, they're not going to be able to get their way out of it. They got to find a way to somehow survive the first 8 minutes of this football game, which so far in the playoffs has been impossible for everybody against Ohio State.